This edition of Italy TV is sponsored by Colavita Extra Virgin Olive Oil. And Cheerio chopped tomatoes.
For almost my entire life, I've had Italians cut my hair, not just in Italy, but New York. When I was a kid in Brooklyn, it was Sal. In high school, it was Vincenzo in the Bronx. I briefly had a woman who was not Italian, but she looked like Jane Fonda, and it was the 1960s, so I offer no excuses. But for the past 20 years, I've had a magnificent Roman woman named Loredana, who I found on one day when two men with very different haircuts both looked great. I stopped them and I said, "Who cuts your hair?" And they said, "Her name is Loredana and she's from Rome. So I need to have my hair cut. Here we go." C'è molto da fare oggi.
Lo vedo.
I've been coming here for 20 years. I had a lot more hair when I got here, but Loredana's always given me a good haircut with whatever I have. And somehow when I lost some on top, it got longer in the back. It's a middle-aged man's ponytail, a codino as the Italians say. I used to have very bushy, like an afro, and now the hair is coming down and it hangs down, but it used to come up and out.
Yeah,
and
it was very curly.
It was very curly. In Italy once, before I met you, I was in Florence and I got a haircut, and the barber said, "Ma è un cespuglio, it's a bush." In opera, the most famous barber is the barber of Seville. That's a man. But there's a famous woman, Delilah, in Samson Delilah, who cuts hair too. When she cuts hair for Samson, she takes away his power. When Loredana cuts my hair and makes me look good, she gives me power. Better.
So we left our pleasure activist like Fred Plotkin having his barber's experience and talking about Barbieri di Siviglia, and I'm here with Stefano Albertini, director of Casa Italiana Zerini Marimo, to try our own experience. Are you ready, Stefano?
I'm ready and waiting to enjoy it.
Let's get shaved. What's the most important thing when it comes to shaving?
My hand got to be very light, not too heavy, got to be very light. If you use a good razor, you give it good shave.
And how often do you shave?
I shave once a week, maybe. Sometimes twice if I have a date or something. And sometimes I shave with the buzzer, and then sometimes I shave with the razor, depending on how close I want to get the shave.
What do you prefer?
I think I like the razor with the hot cream because it gives a closer shave. It feels better,
this episode where we treated ourselves. It doesn't come that usual, right?
No, but it's really good, especially when it's so cold, to get inside, get pampered, warm towels, and get out and feel fresh and renewed.
We kind of like want to do something like that like every single day, like waking up in the morning, getting to the cold of New York.
That wouldn't be bad at all.
Well, let's go have something, like maybe a coffee.
Let's go.
First sight, oh, my heart is yours tonight. Oh.
I'm at Casa Italiana, Zerilli Marimo at New York University, and I'm going to launch a few segments. Let's start with our food and wine expert, Charles and Michelle Cicolone, and see what they're eating and drinking for us today.
Spaghetti alla chitarra, served with tomato sauce and basil, a very traditional dish. And of course we're using the pizza device to make the pasta, and it does look like a chitarra.
Hi, I'm Michelle Cicolone,
And I'm Charles Cicolone.
and today we're having fun. We're eating in the kitchen while Chef Matteo Bergamini prepares our lunch. And our dish today is spaghetti alla chitarra, with a delicious fresh tomato sauce. Now, spaghetti alla chitarra is an egg pasta from the Abruzzo region of Italy. Thank you, Chef.
Thank you, Chef.
And it's made on a device called a chitarra, traditionally. And a chitarra is like an open wooden box with strings across it. And the way you make it is you take a sheet of pasta dough, you lay it across the strings, and then you strum the chitarra to get the pieces to fall through. And you have this delicious square-shaped spaghetti. Now, Charles has some delicious wine lined up for this, I'm sure.
Yes, I do, Michelle. The wine that would go best with this is a Montepulciano d'Abruzzo, which comes from Abruzzo, which is in the central eastern part of the Italian peninsula. The grape is also grown throughout the central part of Italy, and some of it is also grown in the south. However, we should not confuse this grape with a wine by the same name almost, which is Vino Nobile del Montepulciano. Montepulciano is a city in Tuscany, and Vino Nobile del Montepulciano is made from a clone of Sangiovese and other grapes. Montepulciano is a wine which is, has a deep purple color to it. It has very good fruit flavors, blueberry, blackberry, and also has a hint of spice and pepper. And since this dish is from Abruzzi and so is the wine, I think they would make a perfect combination.
I can't wait to try
Let's
it.
taste the wine. Very nice.
Lovely. And now for some of our spaghetti alla chitarra.
This just looks wonderful, dear.
Doesn't it? Oh,
Yes.
and it's cooked just perfectly, too.
Yes, it is.
Well, ciao. Great to see you again.
Ciao.
For iBook, Professor Fred Gardafè of Queen's College at CUNY is suggesting us what to read this week. For iNew York, let's chat with Maurizio Molinari from La Stampa and see what he has something for us about his New York.
Franklin Tricchia has become a master writer of fiction since his decline in terms of literary criticism over the years, and he's created a new series of mystery stories, a detective mystery called An Accidental Pallbearer. Now, I don't like detective mysteries because to me they're all full of plots that eventually get rolled over and used again and again and again. But what we have in this novel is an Italian-American ex-professor who got thrown out of the university for hanging a provost out of the window in a fit of rage. he comes home to a father who is a kingpin in local politics, which means also that he's connected in some ways to some of the crimes, organized crime that gets taken care of in Rochester. And Elliot Conti is the protagonist, the detective, and he comes back and starts his job as a detective, looking at solving local crimes and so on. And he ends up solving this big crime, a crime that's been unsolved for many, many years. And it includes very much the possibilities that the people he loves may be implicated in this crime. His method of being a detective is unlike any. It's not like Columbo. It's not like any of the slick detectives that you find throughout the reading of mystery novels. He's very sloppy, but he's also very methodical in terms of as if he was doing research for writing an article. It's a very interesting take on the mystery novel through the eyes of a Italian-American ex-professor who, in the course of solving the mystery, at times could be the victim, at times could be the perpetrator of the crimes that he solves. And it's a very interesting take on Italian-American themes throughout. We have not really seen this, not even in Lisa Scotolini. So I tell Lisa Scotolini, move over, scoot over. We have a new mystery writer on our hands.
The Italians are part of the life of New York. Whatever happens in this city has an Italian angle. And if we try to understand what's going on, we may learn something more about the Italian identity, even in Italy. This is why I believe that we have to pay attention to what's going on the other side of the Hudson River in New Jersey. More and more Italian companies are relocating themselves from the richest part of Italy, northeast, northwest, to New Jersey. They are coming for fiscal reasons that have to do with the taxation system, the new rules that have been implemented in Italy. It has to do with the lack of the market. The market in Italy is very weak. People buy less and they don't look for new things. So basically, you have some of the jewels of the Made in Italy that are migrating in the New York area. This is a trend that has to do with the middle size and the small size enterprise. And this is new, because if we pay attention, if we see which Italian companies relocated or invested in producing manufacturing in this country, so are only the big names. It started by Villa, as we know, it's in Ohio, in Iowa. Then we had Finmeccanica in Pennsylvania. Then, of course, we have Fiat with Chrysler, but these are the big names. In this case, we have the small enterprises, the small family business in Veneto instead of Lombardy or Piemonte that says, you know what, I bet my future in New Jersey. It's a big change, it's an important change, not only in economic terms, but human terms, because it means that a new wave of human beings that like to produce the Made in Italy will do this here. How this will change the American market, I don't know, but it already says a lot about the weakness of the Italian economy.
Now it's our iFocus corner. Let's see what we have for you.
What does it mean to work in the world of Italian America? And when I say work in the world of Italian America, I'm not talking about working for Fiat or working for Alfa or working for being involved in bringing forward the culture, promoting the culture. In promoting Italian culture, of course, one has to go back and study the history. You also realize that there may be secrets, quote unquote, in your house that you don't know about. My grandmother, on my mother's side, came over here in 1906. She couldn't read or write. She spoke her French Provençal dialect. She had 11 kids. She had 9 kids that eventually grew to be adults. What I found out was that she was also an enemy alien. It's a little booklet, like a passport, that she had to carry around. February 14th, 1942, I call it her Valentine's card from the United States government of that time. The case of Jennifer Esposito, for example, reminds us who we are as ethnics. Whether we agree or not with her, she was on a TV program, she was ill, she asked for relief time. The major network in the program let her go. She turned around and said, "You're doing that because I'm Italian," and she used the term racism. It reminds us, we Italians, of who we were. All the more important that we go back and learn what our grandparents, and perhaps in some cases, I'm not saying Jennifer Esposito, but someone of the current generation, that is, in their 30s or 40s, who may have suffered the innocent joke. Here comes bada bing when an Italian American walks into the room, or how did the day go? Seemingly innocent joke, but when told by a non-Italian American, not innocent at all. When we study our own history, we probably should study the other ethnics also. The Irish, for example, were first in civil servants, police, firemen, sanitation workers. Then we came along, the Italians, and we got college degrees, we moved out. Then the African Americans perhaps came along, or the Puerto Ricans came along. I think what we have been doing in the last 15 to 20 years, maybe a little bit more, is now looking at how we all sort of did the same thing. Everyone talks about Little Italy. People forget about East Harlem. East Harlem was perhaps, at one point, even more Italian than Little Italy. Well, when we think of Harlem, we think of African Americans. Well, yeah, they were there too, but so were we. Now when we think of East Harlem, we think of Puerto Ricans. Our experiences and our similarities are much more in line with each group than the so-called differences, so that we are much more similar overall than we actually think or perhaps thought we were. We no longer have the immigrant generation. That is the old immigrant generation. We no longer go to grandma's house on Sunday for 2 o'clock dinner. We no longer have Thanksgiving dinner, turkey preceded by lasagna and spaghetti and 2 other different types of pasta. Today we've become much more cosmopolitan. We are no longer in those cocoons of only Italian or Italian American. Our generation, the generation after us, in some ways is going to be more open and more broad, and it's more Italian because you don't have to go to Italy to get to Italy. You can virtually go to Italy. And that's what we couldn't do before, and that's what we can do now. The expression that anyone could be president comes true to life when we look at Barack Obama, and especially the second time, because it's a confirmation that the super ethnic can be president for a second term. Italian Americans, well, look what we've had. We've had LaGuardia, we've had Impellitteri, we've had a number of mayors, Giuliani, we've had Cuomo, we have Christie. There have been, on average, 25% of the 200 plus state legislators who have been of Italian origin. A good 51 or 52, I think, right now, as I sit here and talk to you. Not all Democrats, a good number of them Republicans, but very much, each in their own way, to varying degrees, tied into their Italian origin. And that speaks to a type of civil discourse, quote unquote, on the part of these Italian Americans who have supported this institute from the beginning, and after about 5 to 6 years into its existence, made it a line item in the budget. And we need to thank them all for what they do and for keeping alive the Italian culture in that way.
Fry people, we met Antonietta La Vecchia, Italian-American actress. She's talking about her life and her career as a performer.
My name is Antoinette La Vecchia. I'm an Italian-American actress in New York City. I came here when I was 2.5. When we came to the States, my mother refused to learn English. So I was so lucky to have the Italian language at the same time I was learning English. And because I'm a storyteller, I always wanted to tell the story of my family that just happened to be Italian. And I wrote a show called How to Be a Good Italian Daughter in Spite of Myself. And that was really about the conflict between the old world, the Italian world, very religious, very old-fashioned, and the modern Italian-American woman, divorced, actress. The character of my mother was the star. How difficult it was for her to accept my situation. I think it's a mistake you divorce him. I think something, maybe you gotta go back. I'm like, Mom, never going back. I think you make a mistake. I'm the first divorce of the whole family. They didn't even know the word. And you know what's funny? We go back to Italy. My parents wouldn't let me go back to Italy for years because my divorce was, oh, la vergogna, la famiglia, non capiscono. We went back. Everybody in Italy was like, succedere. You know, essentially, what can you do? And my mother could not believe how liberal they were. They were so open and easy. And here, my parents were stuck in 1969. But on the other hand, I'm glad they were stuck because it gave me a lot of creative juice. Ma se tu non vai alla chiesa, se tu non vai alla chiesa, rovini la vita, se tu non tieni qualcosa, you know, and I'm just like, Ma, I don't believe in the Catholic Church. And what do you believe? The audience was made up of Italians, but so many people who are not Italian. I had one man in his 80s, Jewish. He said, "How did you know my mother?" After he saw my show. We're all so different, but at the end of the day, the heart is the same, the grief is the same, the humor is the same. What I've discovered is the more specific I am in telling the story, the more universal it becomes.
Let's give a look what we covered for you in the past and give you some suggestions for events in the upcoming week.
As you can see, her art is very broad. That's what really got my attention several years ago. We started working together with a project with music and visual arts, and the idea of finding intersections between these arts and the idea of having really a broad spectrum of possibilities, you know, not just painting, not just video art, but something bigger, has really made us, you know, come up with something particular. And we would go from live painting to short animated in videos that we have made together.
Le fonti di ispirazione sono il fumetto, l'illustrazione, il cinema. Infatti io mi occupo anche di videoarte, di arte a 360 gradi, anche la musica. E quindi diciamo che io interpreto un po' il mondo, tutto quello che vedo, quindi dalle arti e anche la vita reale, e alla fine creo una mia interpretazione personale di tutto ciò che mi circonda.
We brought together the Italian community, or some part of the Italian community, and the Ethiopian community to talk about a dark chapter of Italian history, of Italian colonial history. The controversy started last summer with the memorial for Graziani. The monument was erected by the municipality of Affile. Some of the funding came from the region of Lazio, and it generated a very big controversy because of the choice of Graziano, which was condemned as a war criminal for what he did during the war in Repubblica Sociale, and in general for what he did as a general in Africa.
Exhibition Paolo Ventura, photographs from 3 series of Ventura's work, which tell stories of his invented words in a luminous, magical, and imaginative way. Exhibition, a picture gallery in the Italian tradition of the quadreria, 29 paintings and drawings from the 18th and 19th century European masters, examples of Italian figurative tradition which illustrates landscapes and the society of the time. Exhibition, Sao Wing Lam collection of rare Italian stringed instruments, an extraordinary collection of 17th and 18th century Italian stringed instruments, crafted by historical violin makers Giuseppe Guarneri and Antonio Stradivari.
This is unfortunately the last episode of the season, but we will be back in a month. Meanwhile, we don't leave you alone. Stay with us because every week we have surprises for you before the next season starts. Arrivederci!
This edition of Italy TV was brought to you by European Flavors, promoting organically grown fruits and vegetables in the best European tradition. And Baci Perugina chocolates. Say I love you the Italian way.